Tell me whenever you start.
Namaskar and good evening all. On behalf of Karyashala, a very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today for our 27th online episode of MANTHAN, a series of talks to stay connected. Today, we have with us an artist from Iran, Ms. Reyhane Ghaemi. Thank you, Reyhan, for accepting our invitation and joining with us today. With great honor, let me introduce our today's speaker. Artist Reyhane Omid Ghaemi was born in 1989 in Esfahan, Iran. She finished her BA in painting from Shahed University of Iran. But as her main art concern was cinema, since her childhood, she continued her education in cinema and got her MA in cinema. Now she works as an independent filmmaker. She considers world vision in her artworks and searches on avant-garde expression and contemporary art movement. She participated in many national, international art events and exhibitions, including Living Space, Transylvania in 2016, and Eco-avant-garde, Hungary in 2016 as well. She also participated in 3 global nomadic art projects in Lithuania, South Africa, and India. Since 2014, she has made many short films. Her artworks focus on fantasy as recognized in modern psychoanalysis, and she reflects her findings in her short films and stop-motion series such as Labyrinth and The Hunchback Worm. Without taking much time, let's invite artist Ms. Reyhane to talk about space, time, and fantasy. So, floor is yours, Reyhane.
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. And thanks for having me here, inviting me here. I'm very happy. And so, as you said, I'm going to talk about fantasy and space and time today. But before I start, I have to say that I should start with something is just happening around me in my country because Kershala, it's just like that every artist are taking influences from the environment, and if we don't take those influences, we can't uh, we can't be artists simply. So, as you, my friend, may heard, there's a very big water protest these days here in Iran, and it's just taking more and more serious every day. So I wanted to start with this because it's somehow related with my whole concept. Uh, it's been like that about 10 days ago, the biggest river in Iran went dried out, and the government is doing nothing for this except that they are shooting, they're killing the poor people who are demonstrating. So things like this are happening every day around us, especially in this region that we are living in. Maybe all of you know this is a very special region. It's not, it don't have really the normal usual days like maybe the other people in some other part of the world has. But these days it's getting more and more serious. Uh, so because I believe that many of you are artists, environmental artists, eco artists, or simply activists, and you have the concern, I believe, You have the concern and you can see every day these things are happening around us. So as for me, it's the same. Like we can see this whole disasters, this injustice around us. We want to do something. We feel that we are living in this crumbling planet of ours, that we have been destroyed for times, for centuries, and today we are trying to fix it, to save it. And many of us are doing many things about it. We are doing artworks, we are paying our amount of money, our times, and we are searching for these little and little solutions. But maybe you have this feeling also, because I always have this feeling that our solution are somehow very much simple and innocent in a way, and in many cases they are repressing, because it's like that someone is just doing this whole mess. Someone is destroying this whole things with the machine, with the tank, and we are just trying to fix it with simple little stitch. Or it's just like we are trying to fight a machine gun with a piece of a stick. So I always think that how simple our solution, and I feel that many of us have this feeling, have this wish that maybe it was just very nice if the earth, if our world has this rewind button and we could restart everything from it was in the first place. But simply it's a wish. Maybe the symbol of this wish is just that recently we even sent that Martian rover, if I'm right, I don't know, some spaceship to search the Mars for new life. We are trying to find some other planet because we know we destroyed this planet in a way that we cannot fix it anymore. We cannot save it. And every try, every effort of us is somehow pointless. And I know it's very sad, but this kind of sad thinking, this kind of sad approach led me personally to the fantasy for years. But what is fantasy? Uh, as you may heard about it, fantasy is somehow a confusing concept, because there are two definitions for fantasy and there are two uses for fantasy. The first one is the concept that we are using in psychoanalysis. You may heard about it. And the second one is a genre in art and literature. So for many years, they were trying to make it, make an effort to for this confusing concept. They even maybe many experts they even recommended to uh, this kind of, let me show you, this kind of different spelling for fantasy versus fantasy. One could be for the genre and the other could be for the psychoanalysis thing. But it's not really functionable because it's not working everywhere. For example, in my maternal language, it's not working. We have the whole different alphabet system. So years passed, and beside this confusing concept, many experts try to find an exact definition for the fantasy as a genre. But these definitions also seem not to be working very well, because they are precise in their way, but in the other way, they are not like a definition to just refuse these confusing concepts. They are just seems to forcing their own rules to the concept, to the genre. For example, one of them telling that fantasy, the high fantasy, should come out from its context, its social context, while it's not really true because we have too many fantasies that they are not coming out from social context and they are great. But anyway, all of these definitions from experts have the same common point. And that common point is that they are all agree. They all agree that we have low fantasy and high fantasy. The low fantasy is something like fairy tales. We are all familiar with that. And the high fantasy is that kind of fantasy which allows us to go to some new world, which we cannot experience it any other way. So let me go back to the psychoanalysis because I want to say today, with the development in psychoanalysis, the fantasy as an expression in psychoanalysis is not really different from the genre, from the expression we use for the genre, because they both really changed in these days. Uh, so for speaking about the fantasy in psychoanalyzing, we know that it was Freud who used the word for the first time, and for him, fantasy was like that a part of brain, a part of mind, and he just made this topography that divided the mind with conscious mind, subconscious or preconscious mind, and unconscious mind, with this famous topography of the Alps mountain. And as he was dealing with his patients, he just recognized that the patients, when they're trying to remember their memories, they're telling it in a different way. Like they are lying, they are adding some part to it. But it was not really like that. They were not lying, but it is like that no one can remember a memory in the exact way it was. So it's a function of our brain. That brain is by time passing, our brain is just adding some extra part to the original memory. And in the other way, I should say, our brain rebuilt a memory in this present time. So he named these added parts as fantasy. But his issue was that he was searching for a place for mind in the body, and he could never make it. In the other effort, he made his second topography with ego, superego. You may have heard about it, which is more precise than the previous division of conscious, preconscious, and unconscious. But still, it's something. It's something really metamorphical. It's not something physical. With ego, superego, you can't still find some place for the mind, especially for the unconscious mind in the body. So he died and could never succeed with this idea of finding a physical place, but after him, his successor, Jacques Lacan, find the exact place. But how? With using topology. And first I should say, what is topology? Topology is a branch of mathematics, or I may better to say, it's a branch of geometry, new geometry, that it's not working with the vertices and with the edges in a way that our everyday geometry, we call it Euclidean geometry, does, but it's just dealing with the relation between vertices and the edges. So, in a simple way, they say that topology is a kind of science that says a coffee pot is the same object as donut, because by reforming the donut, you will reach a coffee pot. You have the same number of edges and the same number of vertices, but and still you haven't break the object, uh, but you reshape it into something which seems like a new object to us, while it's not. So the main rule of topology is you can reform an object as many times as you want by stretching it, twisting it, and squeeze it, or any other reformation, but not breaking and not penetrating, not drilling. You can never drill the object. So this is the whole rule. And with this concept, there are, let me say, topological objects. And the common feature for all these topological objects is that they are, as Jack Lacan said, they are interextimate. And interextimate means they have only one surface. They don't have an inside surface or outside surface. They have simply one surface. And the most famous object we know in topological objects is Mobius band, Mobius strip. You can see if you are starting from one point on the Mobius strip and walk all the way around, you will end up on the other side without drilling the object or without jumping on it or without, I don't know, breaking or anything else. So uh, it's like that these rules of topology are present inside this kind of object like Mobius band. So Jack Lacan said that our mind and our body is exactly like that. He said it was not like that Freud couldn't find a place for the mind in the body. It was just that he was trying to find it in our three-dimensional world and explain it with Euclidean geometry and with linear time, which is not possible. And that's why we can't find it, we can't understand. That's why the concept of the mind is not tangible for us in this three-dimensional space, because mind, especially the unconscious mind, is something which is belongs to the other dimension, the other dimensions after these 3D dimensions. So Lacan says that mind and body are like the Mobius band. They are just coming one after each other. They are not separated. They are one unique object like Mobius band. They don't have, it's not like that our body is here and our mind is inside, or our body is here and mind is outside. They are just coming after each other. But why we can't understand it very well, or why we can't touch it with our five senses, with why it's not tangible for us? It's simply because our comprehension, our understanding from the world is limited to the three-dimensional space. So we can understand the concept with some other topological object. We call it Klein bottle. You see, Klein bottle is exactly like the Mobius band. It's just uh, an object has been shaped with the rotation of the Mobius band. I'm not going to explain it. I don't want it to be very complicated. But uh, if you pour a liquid in the Klein bottle, it will come out in its first place. Again, there is no inside and outside for the Klein bottle. But what is here, you see, there is a penetration here. Uh, I told before that in topological objects, we are not allowed to drill the object, to penetrate into the object, but there's a penetration in the Klein bottle. Here the handle is penetrated in the surface, which is not allowed. But I should say it's because we are again seeing the object in the three-dimensional world, in the four-dimensional world, it won't be like this. It's just like as underestimate as the movie event is, and there will be no penetration in the four-dimensional world. Uh, to have the better image from this, we can simply see what cube is in our world. Imagine that you were living in the first dimension, so you could see the cube as a simple line like this here. If you were living in the second dimension, sorry, if you were living in the second dimension, you would have seen the cube like in a square here. And in the third dimension, which we are living in, we are seeing a cube like this, but the real cube in the first dimension would be an object like this, and the other dimension, the next dimension, something like this, and which is really infinity. Uh, it's something that we can never stop. We can go as far as we want with it. So let's go back to the fantasy. I I told in the first in the beginning that the concept of fantasy in psychoanalysis is not really separated from the fantasy as a genre in art and literature. But why? As you may remember, I told that we have this agreement about the fantasy, that we have the low fantasy, like fairy tale, and we have the high fantasy, which is really impressing, life changing, and we have just these great works in the history, like C.S. Lewis's or R.R. Tolkien's works. Anyway, Uh, and I believe it's not my personal idea. I'm trying to prove it that all of these high fantasies have the same common point, and this common point is that they are directly connected to the human unconscious mind. But how? They are connected to the human unconscious mind by just reforming time and space, because our unconscious mind is not understanding time and space that our conscious mind is doing. Our conscious mind is just have this limited definition about Euclidean geometry and linear time, I said before, but the unconscious is timeless and spaceless. So, uh, this great work of fantasy are shaping a new world which has, at the first place, this deformation of time and space. For example, uh, if you remember the famous work of fantasy that you know, we all know this famous work of fantasy, and the fairy tales. Our fairy tales have this feature. They have these special creatures, like I don't know, fairies itself and beasts or anything. And everybody believe that if you are adding the creature, different creature to this everyday world of ours, we can reach the fantasy. But I'm trying. It's not simply like this. With doing it, you can reach only the low fantasy. But high fantasy is always dealing with something more. And the something more, as we can remember the whole great work of fantasy, which can be just like a really permanent concept in our mind, are reshaping this world with new imagination of time and space. I mean, they are dealing with the real time and space, while this time and space we have here is really symbolic, is really limited. We just limited ourselves with this our limited sense of ours, this five sense in this world, and we think it's not possible to be something more like this. Um, Let me make it simple. If low fantasy is trying to reach something below this everyday world of ours, the high fantasy is trying to reach a world beyond this everyday world that we are living. So the first thing is doing is just reforming time and space, because again I say the real time and the real space is not something that we have in our mind. It's something really different. And the most simple definition about is that we have understand our world with with the straight lines. For us, this world have been made with horizontal and vertical lines. While it's not really like this, the world has been shaped with curves, because curves are going through the time. It's time that, again, remember the example of the cube. It's time that limiting the curve inside the straight lines. For example, if you look at the curve in a special moment, you will see a straight line, while it's not really the straight line. So it's always like that, and this is somehow an idea I'm following in my own art, which is I'm not going to talk about my own art because it needs another 1 hour more. But again, as I believe that every great fantasy, which is the only way we can escape from this world, this fantasy, is shaping from the reformation of time and space. I try to reform time and space many times in my own artworks, and it is the topic I'm really following it. And I wanted I wanted it to be really scientific, not philosophical only. As you see in this picture, this is the world in the four-dimensional view. In the four-dimensional view, we are only dealing with curves, not with the straight lines. So, as as I started with this concept that we are living in a crumbling planet, I'm going to say that for me, the only way to escape from this world is fantasy. And just for now and for today, it's like something really fantasy. It's like something imaginary. It's like a dream. But as we all know, every great break, every great breakthrough in the history starts with a dream. So I wanted to say it's very important to know that mm, this concept of going through the world of fantasy, which is the world of topology, which is the world that in that world we can just go through the other dimensions. It's not really a dream. Just today, in this hour, scientists are working on it, and they are doing some physical experiments in two different parts of the world. And with this physical experiment, they can prove that there is an other dimension with physical experiment, because as far as we know, uh, for sure there will be other dimensions. We are sure about it, but as far as we cannot prove it with the experiments, it's not science, it's only philosophy. But we don't want it to be only philosophy, we want it to be scientific. So uh, maybe one day in the future, it's not maybe, I'm pretty sure about it, pretty sure also, that if you see this, I don't know, apocalyptic world, it's usually like that human being. is just imagining the planet of Earth being abandoned and the humans are living in the other planet, Mars maybe, just we are as we are trying the Mars for now. Or it's like that human being is just extinct and there's no human anymore. uh, we just led to our extinction and there are robots are living instead of us. They are very too viral concept, too viral image we have from the apocalypse. But uh, I have the other image that in the future, with this kind of experiment, physical experiment that I told you about, and this kind of development in psychoanalysis and in mathematics, which is very important in topology, and also with this development in our art, which I believe that art is just getting closer and closer to the science. So with all this development, we can go beyond this third dimension. So for me, thinking about the other dimension, it's just like that rewind button I told before in the beginning that if we can go through the other dimension, if we can reshaping this world, it will be like we can restart everything maybe. Just like I'm going back to the Freud concept that Freud says about those memories, that memories are not passing, are not finishing. They are all presenting here. It's not like that something is happening in the past and it's just ended up today. But if something happened to you 20 years ago, it's just going through these years and it's just still happening, removing the concept of the time, the linear time. It's just still happening. So you always have this restart button. You always have this rewind button. You always can go to the first place. You always can be in the first place, which is, I think, very interesting while we are doing with this whole settings. And as I said before, all of us have this concern about our society, about our planet, about human beings, about everything. And we believed we destroyed it and we want to fix it. So this could be a way. And of course, I believe as human beings, as one of the biggest glitch in the system of universe, in the whole system of universe, we always have the ability to ruin up the other dimensions also to destroy the other planets like Mars or even other dimensions. So it's not really the solution. But anyway, we can hope that one day we can see the world in the other way that we are used to. We get used to see this world three-dimensional and conscious, and Euclidean also. In one word, I hope that one day we can see the world non-Euclidean but topological and unconscious and very much different from this world that we are just getting used to it and we are not enjoying it anymore, I think. At least many people like, I don't know, the this, the ones who have all these disasters and so on. So as far as we haven't reached this new world, we have to tolerate this own world of ours. I know it's a sad idea again, but it's somehow reality. And we can just enjoy the concept through our artworks, through our fantasies. So I think for the next time, if we are searching for a new word for just rich fantasy, a very high fantasy. It's not really complicated to find the best ones, because I simply believe the best ones are the ones who can connect to our subconscious mind, so they can change our subconscious world, while maybe the other kind of our arts couldn't change our conscious world. But also, I hope that any other effort for rebuilding, for saving this crumbling planet works also. And so that's it. Thank you for joining me to this presentation. I tried it to be very simple. The whole idea is very complicated. It's just dealing with some complicated concepts in mathematics, and it was really, really, really difficult to summarize it and to symbolize it, just in order not to be complicated or boring for the audience. And again, it was very difficult for me to sit here talking about art while people around me in my country are dying for nothing, for their basic rights, not only here in my country, but everywhere in the world. So I hope, I wish for the better world for everyone with any possibility we know. And that's it. Thanks.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Reyhane, for sharing your experience. And it was indeed a pleasure to listening you how you connect fantasy with human space and time. So on behalf of Karyashala, once again, I would like to express our gratitude to you for accepting our invitation and joining with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
So viewers, with this, we end our today's program. We will meet again with another interesting person, an interesting exchange of thoughts. Till then, bye-bye, good night, stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Bye.